Hello everybody and welcome back to game week 7 of fantasy football, Premier League fantasy football that is. We had I'd say fairly standard week, 51 points, average was 51. I did play my free hit and I'll go through who I brought in. So we brought in Peters in central defence from Burnley. Actually did quite well, got an assist. Alexander-Arnold got an assist. Gaeta got some good points as well. Otamendi, I was disappointed. I brought him in. I said last week that I thought he'd be pretty good to bring in because he's quite cheap and he'll actually play because Man City have no one else. Of course, Man City then... did they... Yeah, he played... They conceded, of course, sorry. Pretty frustrating, but I still think long term that's a decent plan. Midfield: Cantwell, Salah, Sterling, Guendouzi. Only Sterling did anything there, and up front I went with Abraham as my captain. We got rid of Jimenez from Wolves and went for Callum Wilson, who did score, so that's pretty good. Haller got an assist. Abraham didn't get anything, which was really disappointing. I'll be honest though, I probably would only have gone for Salah as a captain if I didn't go for Abraham, so it would only have been 2 more points probably. Wouldn't have gone for Sterling, I don't think, but yeah, I decided to go Abraham. Decided to go a little bit left field. He was in good scoring form and they were playing Brighton and Chelsea like to attack, so I figured it would be a pretty good shout, but it didn't quite come off there. If we go to the Plays League, we can see I'm currently bottom of the league. Brilliant. Fantastic. Bottom of my own league. What a great start I'm having. Fair play to all you guys out there who are absolutely smashing it. Top performer of the week looks like Matthew Potts, 78 points. Triple captain played on De Bruyne. Great shout. Although, 2 assists, I guess, but it's a good shout anyway. Interesting to play the triple captain there. Usually a lot of people will save it for a double game week, but, go for it. Strong Liverpool backline there, getting the points. Dubravka in goal, that's a brave one. But Fabianski injured, I guess, so doesn't have... he would only got 1 more point, I guess. Fabianski's out for a little while now, I think. Mahrez, Mount, Wilson, Pukki, Aubameyang. It's decent, really decent side, actually. Very decent indeed. Lost some points to make some transfers, but a good shout. If you get into 78 points and the average is 51, you need to be making those moves. So well done there, Matthew Potts. 3 points off the lead, who's still led by William Buchan of the team name Detective Spooner, but very close up the top there. And God, I'm an embarrassment in my own league, aren't I? Anyway, we're going to get through and talk about the results, I guess. I guess we can start off with Everton Man City. Was that the first one? I think no. Liverpool Sheffield United was the first game. I think everyone expected Liverpool to win this game. Sheffield United are pretty resolute. I think Liverpool will be very, very happy to come away with a win when they were very much frustrated. I don't feel like Sheffield United are going to be the sort of team who get turned over a lot this season. I don't feel, unless they go on a bad run and confidence dips, I don't feel they're going to be the sort of side who gets whooped. Whereas I feel like someone like Aston Villa or Norwich could be, because they play a very different style. So I think Liverpool will be very happy to come away with a 1-0. We've seen Sheffield United take some scalps, so at the end of the day, that's a 3 points is 3 points. Obviously, when you're looking at the teams, there's a massive quality difference. No offence to Sheffield United, and it was a terrible error from the goalkeeper. Wijnaldum with a low shot, and it just kind of bobbled under Henderson. He screwed it up, and you got a feel for the guy. I think I'm pretty sure the stats going to back me up here when I say that. I think Liverpool deserved to win the game, but 4 shots on target. They were obviously fairly well held by Sheffield United, so decent effort. I think it was the manager who said that at the end of the day they don't get anything for effort. Points is what matters, and they didn't get any today, which is fair. This puts Sheffield United 12th in the league, which I'm sure they'll be delighted with. 3 points away from the relegation zone currently. But that would have been a nice point, I guess, if they hadn't have made that mistake. Liverpool would have still had 20-25 minutes to score, so you never know. But yeah, you don't want to be making those kind of errors. And I will say that Dean Henderson has been a very good goalkeeper for Sheffield United. He was there on loan last season, and he is a very good up-and-coming keeper. So I'm sure he'll kind of bounce back, hopefully. But more I watch Sheffield United, the more I think they're going to be okay. But it is still very early days. Like, we're only just hitting October now, so we'll see. As for Liverpool, I mean, they march on. 7 wins in 7, 5 conceded, 18 scored, plus 13 goal difference. I would say that in reality, their hardest test is coming up. Leicester, who I think the Chelsea game was a hard one, but I think this Leicester one will be very interesting, and we'll see what happens here. No one's expecting Liverpool to go unbeaten the whole season. I just think the Premier League's too good for that now. I feel when Arsenal did that, there was a little bit of luck involved, but mostly I just think it was a lot of other teams who were quite poor, and really they could kind of focus on the key matches, against other sides like Man United, etc. I think the quality now we have in the Premier League means that teams like Sheffield United can sometimes cause an upset, or even other teams out there, not just the so-called top 6 out there. So we'll see. I mean, Palace usually do pretty well against top 6 sides, but we'll see. But at the end of the day, they're currently 5 points ahead of Man City, which will be delighted. I'm sure they'll be delighted to be that far ahead of them currently. But again, 7 games out of 38 is nothing, is it? So we'll see. All they can do is keep winning, though, and that's it. I think Alisson's going to be back. He said I think Klopp said he won't be back for the Champions League games. They've got midweek, but he should be back for the weekend. That'll be a big plus. I don't think Adrian's a bad goalkeeper, but I just think attacking-wise, Alisson is very good for them as well. So once we'll start seeing some of those players kind of come through, I think that Liverpool are getting a pretty strong squad right now. Joel Matip's playing very well alongside Van Dijk as well. Fabinho's looking like one of the best midfielders in the league, especially in that kind of holding role. And when players like Wijnaldum pop up with a goal every now and then, it's pretty helpful. But that front 3 is obviously key. But they do have a lot of options, And I think maybe this season it will be interesting to see if Klopp can keep some of these bench players happy. Milner's probably pretty happy. He's getting towards the end of his career. But, maybe someone like Lallana, Ox, players like that, are they going to be happy? Shaqiri, are they going to be happy? I mean, Shaqiri's not even on the bench, but are they going to be happy being there? Will they feel like they, should be in the team, or kind of pressing onwards? It's going to be very interesting. I think they're going to have enough games that they can rotate, but rotation comes with its own problems. So we'll see, but so good so far, I guess, for Liverpool. Aston Villa 2, Burnley 2. I did think Aston Villa were going to sneak this one, but you just got to wonder about their defence at the end of the day. They're just not able to kind of hold on. McGinn here, man of the match, but very good player, I think. I'd be surprised if he's still at Aston Villa next season, to be perfectly honest. I think he was superb in the Championship, and I think he's been brilliant. He's been Aston Villa's best player so far in the league, without doubt. But yeah, very even game. I think Aston Villa will feel a little bit aggrieved to not get a win, but that's Burnley for you. They're tough as you come, and it's welcome to the Premier League. If that was a Championship game, Aston Villa would have walked that probably, wouldn't they? But this is the Premier League, and little bits of quality or turning off a little bit in defence can just make all the difference. Puts Aston Villa up to 5 points. Massive game next against Norwich. I don't hold out much hope for them, but you never know. As for Burnley, I would imagine they're going to finish around about here, aren't they, really? That's just what Burnley do. We'll see. Bournemouth 2, West Ham 2. Again, I think Bournemouth will feel a little bit aggrieved that they didn't hold out on this one. I will say, though, that when will people learn? Don't let Andrei Yarmolenko onto his left foot. The guy does it time and time again. Yeah, fascinating. But yeah, West Ham coming back. Is that a good result for them? Is that the sort of match which, if they've got top 4 ambitions, they should be winning? Bournemouth are a tough side. Off the back of a couple of wins, I think West Ham might be a little bit disappointed with that. I think the Aston Villa draw as well, they'll be a little bit disappointed with. I don't think they're doing badly, West Ham. I think that loss was the first game of the season, so they've come back into things a bit nicely. But I think if they've got to just hit that next gear to really crack on. I think Bournemouth are not a bad side, and at the end of the day, I would expect them to be around mid-table come the end of the season. But I kind of feel like West Ham they're on the brink of it. I feel like they're coming about to push and get into that top 4. Which, let's face it, top 6 is not going to do much for West Ham. Being in the Europa League next season won't change their lives. They're already a fairly big spending club. That little bit of extra income there won't help too much. Being in the Champions League would change the club. So that is really obviously where they're aiming for. Early days yet, but 5th is not a bad place to sit right now for them. Just got to work on that defence a little bit. Yeah, but fairly even game. Yeah. But yeah, I do worry a little bit. And with Fabianski out injured, we'll see. I mean, they're playing Crystal Palace next. This is the sort of side of Crystal Palace like to play, to be fair. They're going to attack Crystal Palace. Palace love to counter-attack. We'll see. I'm weirdly always more confident when Palace play a bigger team than I am when they play a lower team. But that's just me. Chelsea 2, Brighton Hove Albion 0. Yeah, kind of a good result for Chelsea. These sort of things can sometimes be banana skins, and Frank Lampard really needed that home win. That was massively important for him. I think Chelsea are going along nicely. I think Frank Lampard's doing a decent job. He clearly, I feel like the defence needs a little bit of a refresh, someone big coming in there to kind of be that leader. I kind of feel like he's okay everywhere else. The interesting thing will be is if, like Tammy Abraham, I mean, what's his stats right now? He's got 7 in 7 for the season so far. That is obviously phenomenal, okay? If he keeps that, here's the question, what does he have to do to be Chelsea's striker next season? Obviously, once the transfer ban goes, how many does Tammy Abraham need to score? What does he need to do? Does he need to score 20? Does he need to score 25? Is there even anything he can do? If he scores 25 goals, will Chelsea just be like, well, we can't take a risk. This could be a fluke season. We need to go out and sign a big striker. I personally don't feel they'll do that because I think Frank Lampard does have faith in him. But certainly I feel like if he scores any less than probably 17, 18 now this season, then he because the problem is that he's scoring now, and he's 7, and if you turn around and go, well, he's only got to get 13 more goals, and he potentially could play another 31 games. So you only really need to score 1 every 3 games, which is not that high a ratio for a striker, especially in a good team. But if he hits that, will that be enough? Because what people will remember is not the start he made, but the finish he makes. So I feel like if it was the other way around, if he was on, say, 4 goals now, but then towards the end of the season he went on a spree, I think that would ask more questions than if it's the other way around. So realistically, he needs to keep it up if he wants to be Chelsea striker. But that's probably fair as well, because if you want to play for an elite team at an elite level, then you've got to be banging in the goals. I think he's looked really good this season. He's massively surprised me. I did not think he was cut out for the Premier League, but it's not just scoring goals. You can be set up and tap in from 5 yards out, but he scored some really good finishes. with his head, left foot, right foot. He's done really well, I think, this season, and he's looked really good. So I really hope he can push on with that. And I actually think Frank's doing a decent job. They're seventh, okay. They've had some blips, they lost to Liverpool. Quite a few teams will, that draw with Sheffield United will have hurt them as well. If they'd have actually seen that game out, they'd currently be sitting fourth. We'd be saying that they're doing pretty well, I think, if that was the case. They've got Southampton next. That's the type of game they've got to win. There, good to get a home win though. As for Brighton, I'm a little bit worried about Brighton. They are on a horrendous run of form. Spurs next. That's not going to be good for them. Yeah, I'm a little bit worried about Brighton actually. One win, conceded 10, only scored 5. I mean that has been a bit of a problem for them. Glenn Murray, has been classically their kind of striker, but he is getting on a bit now. Yeah, I worry a little bit for Brighton. I think Graham Potter's a really good manager, and I really hope they stick with him and he can push them onwards, but a little bit worried about him there. But I think Chelsea, I'd be surprised if they didn't finish top 4 now this season with what I'm seeing. Brighton 1 shot on target to Chelsea's 10. I feel very aggrieved that Tammy Abraham didn't score. He had some good chances, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. Crystal Palace 2, Norwich 0. Very, very happy with this result as a Crystal Palace fan. Too many times we get turned over with these games. We're unbeaten at home for, I can't remember, something like 7 games, I think. And Palace often struggle at home. It's often our away form that's been really good. So that's awesome to see. Luka Milivojevic with the penalty. Very, very good penalty taker. I wonder if there is many better penalty takers in the league. When you talk about, players like Pogba and Rashford missing penalties, very, very rarely does he miss a penalty. He'll step up and take it every time. I really feel like he has been one of the best signings, like under the radar signings that has been made in the Premier League in the last few years. Sam Allardyce signed him, funnily enough, and when he came I was like, who the hell is this guy? But he's just been brilliant and captain of the team, great leader. I feel like he's the sort of player who someone like Arsenal is missing out on in a way. There you go. I'd have him over Granit Xhaka literally any day of the week, any second of the week. Townsend with a really good goal as well, set up by Zaha, doing good work. Really good to see Zaha, kind of register an assist. Needs a goal as well, but I think he's getting back to his best there as well. Norwich, everyone talking about Pookie, etc., but I mean, I think they're going to struggle. Like, that's a massive game against Aston Villa next. It really is. I just see them struggling, I said it from day one, and when, they obviously got some good wins, but for me, the difference between Norwich staying up and Norwich getting relegated is converting these losses into draws. The Chelsea one, obviously, conceded late, and Chelsea getting through. The kind of 2-0 they're losing a lot, which says to me that they're kind of almost like chasing the game a little bit and then conceding that second. I mean, obviously it was quite late against Palace, but just not being able to get that goal, and 16 goals in 7 games is not the way you stay in the league. And people can praise managers for sticking to their style, etc., all the way through. I just feel that's not going to be enough for Norwich, so we'll see. As for Palace, what can they do? Currently 9th, 1 point off European places. I don't personally see it. West Ham game will be very interesting, but yeah, without that striker, I mean, look, we scored 6 goals. Above us is 13, 14, 14, 10, 12, 13. 6 goals. That's 15th downwards. Even Norwich, Aston Villa have scored more goals than us. That's the problem. We have 6 goals. We haven't conceded many. If you consider that 4 of those came in one game, if we'd have say drawn that Tottenham 1-0, we would only have conceded 3 goals this season. So our defence is actually very good, apart from that Tottenham game. But attacking wise, that's where we're struggling. Benteke again missing chances. He just misses chances left, right, and centre. He didn't play this one, actually, to be fair. He played Jordan, but I just feel like we really. I mean, I don't think Chelsea would have sold Batshuayi, but I think if we'd have really made a decent offer, they would have cashed in on him, and I think he would have done well for us. So maybe he didn't want to go, though, to be fair, because he probably fancied his chances. But yeah, there you go. Tottenham 2, Southampton 1. Spurs doing this the hard way with Sergio Aurier sent off after 31 minutes. I feel like Aurier could be a really good right back, but feels like there's a kind of temperament issue there with him. He's a bit of a liability sometimes. Ndombele scoring. He's looking like a good buy, I think. Danny Ings equalising after horrific goalkeeping from Lloris. I don't think Lloris is like a world-class goalkeeper, personally. I don't think he's up there in the same calibre as like an Edison and Alisson, players like that. But he is a very, very good goalkeeper, and that was just a nightmare situation. The problem with the goalkeepers playing with their feet like that is, I have no problems with goalkeepers, passing it out and playing like that. What I have a problem with is when they try and take it past players, because I wouldn't see a central defender even really try and do that much. Like, it's one thing to pass it out and make these passes, try and beat the press, etc., etc. It's another thing to try and do a cutback on a player when you're like 2 yards out from goal. That's where you need to have some common sense and just kick the ball out, I feel. Yeah, they did it the hard way though. Harry Kane, scoring only a few minutes later with a really good goal, I thought. Just a quality counter-attack. And Harry Kane's just one of those players who, he just reminds me so much of Alan Shearer in that he just scores goals. Like, he's just so hungry for goals. It's great. It's absolutely fantastic. England have needed a striker like that since Shearer. For me, Shearer was probably the greatest striker in Premier League history, because the guy just could do everything. He could score from anywhere. He scored free kicks. He scored from outside the area. He scored headers. He scored in 6-yard line. He scored 18-yard line. Everything. He did everything, and he was just a natural born finisher. And Harry Kane is that way as well. That I don't know if he meant to control it the way he did. Like, he kind of flicked it into the air almost. Don't know if he meant to do that, but then just kind of volleyed it into corner. It wasn't like showman piece like volleying. It was just effective. He knew where he wanted the ball to go, and he kicked the ball there. That's a great finisher. And while he is at Spurs, they will always have a chance, I feel. And that was a very important win for Spurs. If they'd have drawn that, that's 2 points back. They'd be down in like 10th. A lot of questions being asked. 6th right now, especially after that loss to Leicester as well. I feel like they can build on that. That was a very important win. They've got Brighton next. You'd expect them to win that again. There's clearly some issues within the squad, whether that's with the manager in the squad or with certain players. Something's not clicking, and hasn't been since that Champions League final. People asking, calling for Pochettino to go is utterly ridiculous. The guy has revolutionised Tottenham. Before he came along, Spurs were the sort of team who were trying to get into that top 4, but it was almost that kind of comedy of like, oh, how are Spurs going to screw it up this season, or they always had this kind of mental fragility. And since he's come in, he has revolutionised the team. He's, let's not forget, there were players, he signed a lot of players, but also there were players who he's really brought through. Kane, for example, Winks. He's changed players from Dele Alli as well. He's brought in players and made them look better. Moira's come in and looked much better. They would, if they sold him, they'd make a much higher profit. Sissoko, a guy who was, laughed out of St James's Park, turns up at Spurs, doing pretty well. Son, looking like an elite forward. Didn't look like that before he came to Spurs. Everyone knew he was very good and had a lot of potential, but I feel like Pochettino has improved all the players he's kind of taken. He's brought them on to the next level, and it would be ridiculous to get rid of him. Like, utterly. I just feel like Spurs, who on earth would they get in instead of Pochettino? Like, madness, utter madness to suggest that he should go. Like, even if they finish outside the top six, like, he literally got you to a Champions League final last season. Phenomenal. Massive win for Wolves, kind of getting them a little bit back on track. Watford though, who predicted Watford for relegation this season? 20 goals conceded in 7 games, 2 draws, 5 losses. Arsenal are going to be ruined that draw, aren't they, really? They just can't get a break, can they? But big win for Wolves, gives them a little bit of breathing space, and arrests a sort of terrible run of form. With Man City next, I don't think they're going to pick up any points in that one, but you never know. But really important win, I think, for Wolves there. But Watford, it's always too early to say. At the end of the day, Crystal Palace hadn't scored a goal in September and August and still stayed up fairly comfortably. So anything is possible. They didn't have a win and they hadn't scored a goal, and everyone's like, Crystal Palace are gone. So it's way too early to go. Not Watford are gone. Like, they have a very good side there. But the thing that worries me is when a new manager comes in, sometimes you get a reaction. Their reaction has been to lose 8-0 to Man City and 2-0 to Wolves. It doesn't seem like a great reaction, does it? So I kind of worry a little bit about that. If they really want to stay up, like, funnily enough, getting someone like Big Sam in or something like that would be the way I would have gone. But we'll see. Still early, but they need a win. They really do. Man City Everton, I don't think anybody is surprised at this. Man City go marching on, pretty, I'm not going to say comfortable, but pretty standardish win. Obviously, Everton battling back to 1-1, and then it got to the 71st minute. De Bruyne's assist for Jesus' goal was just sublime. Like, their little cross in after Mahrez made a good run. A lot of people saying that Pickford should have saved Mahrez's free kick. I think that's a difficult one. I think a lot of questions are being asked of Pickford. I don't necessarily feel like it's his fault as much as, like, Everton's defence is a bit dodgy at the minute. I don't think Yerry Mina is good enough to play in the Premier League. But yeah, Man City kind of go marching on. I predicted that Everton's manager, if he doesn't win his next game, will be gone. It's Burnley away. That would be 5 losses in 6 games if they lose to Burnley, which I just feel like with the money they're spending, like, this is nowhere near good enough. I kind of feel like this is almost a free pass if they performed well. And I don't think they performed terribly. Like, 8 shots on target is not terrible, but yeah, they're just, things are not working out. Some players are taking a bit of time, but someone like Moise Kean is always going to take a bit of time to adjust to the Premier League. The guy's played in Italy a lot. He was never going to walk in day one and start smashing goals in, was he? He's one for the future. The Iwobi thing, I guess he was injured. He came on after 7 minutes for Walcott, who did get injured, and then off after 74. For Moise Kean, I guess, who knows? Everton are not performing as they should be, are they? Let's face it. I think they are probably the most underperforming team currently, and if so much as Wolves are now ahead of them after been in the relegation zone most of the season. So Everton 2 points off relegation. You know, if they lose to Burnley, they could be in the relegation zone, and I'd expect that the Everton board is currently already looking at options right now. To be honest with you, I don't think Marco Silva's done anything there to warrant giving him more time. I just feel like they've improved their team each season, and the team's got worse, if that makes sense. Like, they've brought in players who you're like, yeah, recruitment seems pretty good, and yet nobody is playing to the potential that they kind of have been able to. The whole team is not performing. So we'll see. Sometimes people are quick to blame managers when the players are not performing properly, but I do feel like with Everton that there's just something not right there tactically. Like, the defence is not good enough for them. Leicester beating Newcastle United 5-0. I mean, Newcastle a little bit sorry, aren't they? To be fair, you know, it was 1-0, and then Newcastle went down to 10 men and completely collapsed. You know, it was a good goal from Ricardo Pereira, actually, kind of running on. A couple from Jamie Vardy, just the poacher he is. Doesn't look great for Newcastle either right now. Doesn't, you know. Got that win over Tottenham, but, you know, since then, I think it is too early to tell with Steve Bruce. Like, everyone knew, like, Newcastle squad was not great, but there's players like Almiron who are just not performing as they wanted them to. Yeah, I feel like they have a decent enough squad to stay in the Premier League, like Newcastle, but they're just not performing at the minute. Conceding too many, and 4 goals in 7 games is, you know, equal lowest in the league. That's a problem. You know, they brought Joel Linton to kind of rectify that. He's taken a lot more time. 1 goal in 7 games is not really what they had anticipated. That means on average to score about 4 goals this season. 5 actually, sorry, yeah, we're about a fifth of the way through the season, I'd say. So that's not great, is it? As for Leicester, where can they go? 3rd at the minute. You know, 4 wins out of 5. They'll be gutted by that Man United loss, to tell you that much. They should be winning that. Liverpool next, massive game. They, you know, if they get something like that, even a draw, I think that's a really good result for them, and might, you know, prove that they're capable of hanging in there with the big dogs. I think Brendan Rodgers has done a magnificent job since he's come in. I said this last time, I think he's a very underrated manager. I think they can go on. They have a very good squad, and I say squad because they have good players to bring off the bench who can make a difference. They can rotate a little bit. I would say that if Vardy gets injured, they're struggling. But at the minute, yeah, they're looking good. They are looking good. Decent defence as well. I think losing Maguire would be a big loss, but they've only conceded 5. That's the joint best defence in the league. So, not doing too badly at all, are they? Then we come on to Monday night's game, Man United v Arsenal, aka Snooze Fest. Remember when these games? I mean, maybe it's because we big up these games a little bit. You know, they used to be real ding-dong battles, didn't they? You know, the Vieira Keane days. But those days are a long, long time ago. And these two teams have fallen so much since then. You know, back in the day, Man United Arsenal, it was almost like a title decider, wasn't it? Nowadays, I don't even know if it's a 6th place decider. That's unfair on Arsenal to be, who are 4th. But, Man United down in 10th, their worst start in 30 years. I don't see Ole lasting much longer if this stays up, and I don't see how he's going to change it around, because I just don't think he's got a good enough team. There are players who have not been performing for many, many years. Doesn't seem to be any creativity in the Man United team, and they're just poor, aren't they? They're a mid-table Premier League side. That's what they are currently. And I don't see how they're going to change that around, to be completely honest with you. when Mourinho turned around and said like that second place was his best achievement, I actually think he wasn't joking, or not. It wasn't a lie. It was a great achievement because it's not a great team. A lot of deadwood, a lot of well overpaid players. Not a lot of depth for when they get injuries. Sure, you can argue and turn around and say, well, listen, if they had, Shaw and Wan-Bissaka might have been a little bit different, but big teams at Man United should have players who can play in different positions, and they should have backups. It's not like they don't have the resources to be able to do that. So that's down to recruitment, and recruitment has been the problem for both these sides, I think, where Man United have almost, I don't want to say limitless, but they have a lot of money to spend. They just have spent it poorly over the last few seasons. 100 million on Paul Pogba was not what they needed at the end of the day. And now they're playing with, I mean, if you look at this, like the amount of money they've spent on players, and yet 3 of them in midfield are all from the academy, and you're like, and listen, that's great in some ways, but you're like, well, what happened to all that money you spent? Where's Mata? Where's Fred? Where's Matic? You spent that money and those players are not good enough to play in your team. You'd rather choose, in some respect, I don't want to say kids because they're definitely not, especially Jesse Lingard, okay, often mistaken as a kid, but he's like 26, so he's clearly not. But, you're playing academy prospects who, I'd say McTominay is around about good enough to play, but I don't think Pereira or Lingard are good enough, to be completely honest with you. Rashford up front, I'm not sure he's good enough. So, yeah, it's a tricky one. As for Arsenal, I mean, listen, same old Arsenal. They're terrible in defence. Don't have a leader in midfield. Guendouzi's looking like their best player. They kind of had the opposite problem, I think, Arsenal, which is like, I think they realise they need to replace these players, but they don't have the money to do that. And whether they don't have the money because they don't have the money or just don't want to spend the money, that's an argument that can be made. People are calling for Emery to be fired. Arsenal are 4th right now. Yes, they've had some draws recently. The Watford one will cost them a little bit. I don't think they're doing as badly as a lot of people think right now. Yes, their defence is pretty shocking, but when they have players, I think, coming back who will help them, and they need that. Emery's doing the best he can. He's working with what he can. He's having to play a lot of kids. I read an article about Ainsley Maitland-Niles where, he's not a right back, and he's being played in right back because of, Bellerin being injured. Callum Chambers came in for this game. He's more of a winger, to be fair, a wide midfielder, and he's bringing through some of these young talents like Willock, Nelson. Martinelli looked good midweek as well. So he is trying to bring through these players, and attacking wise, they're looking really good. But it's just, I think they don't have that leader in midfield. Granit Xhaka's not good enough. I don't want to comment on him ducking under the McTominay shot, because that's a harsh one, isn't it? Really, you can often think if that football was going over, and it didn't, and you don't want to concede a corner or whatever, so you kind of duck out. You don't want to impede the goalkeeper's view, so you kind of duck down on it. Split-second decisions like that are not what you judge a player on. One decision like that. What you judge a player on is the fact that he doesn't seem to be able to pass, he can't tackle, and he's clearly not a good enough leader for the club. That's how I would judge him. And the defence, obviously, just you literally could get rid of every single one of those players in defence. Goalkeeper's good, but otherwise, I'd replace every single one of them. So Arsenal, are not there because of a lack of investment. I think Emery is still the guy to go forward with them. He needs a bit more backing, or he needs a bit more time to bring through some more of the kids and play there, because they do obviously have some good talent there. But, you can see there, the seeded 11, no one else around them has got to double figures. So, that's the difference, basically. To be fair, Man United have only conceded 7. Their problem has been this inability to score goals, I'd say, where they want to. Most of the teams above them are well into double figures now. and that's because they sold. Let's just be honest here. They sold their best striker in the summer. Like Lukaku, when you line up Lukaku against Rashford, Greenwood and Martial, I would take Lukaku up front any day of the week. Everyone would. You can turn around and say he doesn't suit the style, doesn't do this, doesn't do that, doesn't do it against big teams. I guarantee you Lukaku would score more goals than Rashford, Martial and Greenwood this season if he was in that, if he was given the same game time. Rashford has scored 3 goals, and I think that was 2 in the first game. Not looking too good right now, is it? Oh, bless. I don't know if Solskjaer is the right. I don't feel Solskjaer is the right man to take them forward, but I also don't know who they're going to get in to replace him, who will be able to do much better than 10th. Really, I think if they get in a big manager, it might turn around, and he might be able to tactically improve some players and get them up to top 6 level. But I just don't feel like the team is good enough to push on any further than that. So yeah, sad times. So let's have a look at where we're going with the next games. So Saturday, early game, Brighton v Spurs. Brighton need to address a downward spiral, and Spurs need another win to kind of keep up momentum. So a lot on it for both teams. Burnley, Everton. Everton desperately need to win this game. Like, desperately. I just don't see them being able to do that. Liverpool, Leicester, really massive game. I think they're biggest challenge for Liverpool this season. I feel. Norwich, Aston Villa, massive day. That relegation 6-pointer thing is a cliche, but it's kind of true, isn't it? Same with Watford, Sheffield United. Like Watford right down there, they need points. Sheffield United are only a few losses away from being dragged back into the relegation zone. So big match for both the teams. West Ham, Palace. Again, I'm fairly confident Palace can get something out of that game, but which means they'll probably lose quite badly. We'll see. West Ham are doing okay, I'd say. Arsenal, Bournemouth. Type of game that Arsenal would often lose. So it's a big game. I think they'll win that, though, personally. Man City, Wolves. Like, you can't look past Man City winning ever, can you? Really, in a way, if they're on their game, De Bruyne, Stacey, etc. Southampton, Chelsea. It's the type of game, if Chelsea want to be top 4, they should be winning that. And Newcastle, Man United, again, that's a big game, because you just feel like Newcastle could spring an upset there. Solskjaer could just be out of a job. Really could be, because you've got the international break there. That's the time when clubs look to make a change, so that they have more time to kind of bed themselves in before their next match. And I mean, it's a big one though, because also they're going to play Liverpool as their next match. So whatever manager comes in, that's their first game. Could be that that's a bit of a given, where it's like, oof, we don't expect anything from there. It's your first game. But I feel like if they don't get anything from that, there's no way they get anything from that, and that spells the end, I think, for Solskjaer, because by that point Man United will probably be down here, and that would not be acceptable for 9-10 games into the season, would it? So yeah, I think Marco Silva is first for the chop, but then I think Solskjaer will follow him very quickly. I think they're the managers who will be going. Who the hell replaces them? I have no idea. Like, there's big clubs to have managers come in. Do they just appoint someone till the end of the season and then look, or do they go big? Because I don't even know who would go there right now. In all honesty, it's crazy. But I think Man United have just been so poorly managed. It's absolutely crazy, isn't it? To see a club with their resources just squander it away. And it proves that money does not buy you everything. Like, look, Man United are in 10th. Their budget is massive compared to Crystal Palace, Bournemouth. Even clubs like Leicester and West Ham are nowhere near the budget of Man United. And, they're smashing them this season. So, yeah, we'll see. I'm personally delighted Crystal Palace are in 9th right now. Like, my dream has always been for Palace to get into Europe. I don't see us being able to get into that there. I felt last season was our chance and we blew it. But this season, I just feel like the West Hams and Leicesters are so much stronger that we're not going to stand a chance. But ninth, I think, is really good for us so far. And Roy, do not underestimate the job Roy Hodgson has done at Crystal Palace. We would be screwed without him. And eventually, he's going to stop because he is very, very old right now. So we will have to think about where we go from there. But yeah, till next time, guys. Let me know how your team's doing. Any suggestions you have on who to bring in. I'm always listening. And I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.